Hello, everybody, and welcome to this online masterclass. My name is Búrca Garvey, Artistic Director of the West Wicklow Festival, and I'm delighted that in partnership with the National Concert Hall that we are delivering this masterclass with Adam Walker, Principal Flute of the London Symphony Orchestra, and Molly, Faith and Rebecca, our three wonderful students today. Just before we start, obviously this masterclass was supposed to happen during the West Wicklow Festival later on this month, which we had to cancel for obvious reasons. But I'm delighted that along with my colleagues in the National Concert Hall, we've been able to set this masterclass up today, and thrilled, of course, that Adam agreed, and also that Molly, Faith and Rebecca agreed to take part today. For anyone who isn't familiar with the West Wicklow Festival or the National Concert Hall, you can check out details on westwicklowfestival.com and similarly nch.ie. So, not that Adam needs too much of an introduction, but just for those of you who don't know Adam, Adam is, well, he's quite simply one of the best flute players in the world. He was appointed as Principal Flute of the London Symphony Orchestra at the insane age of 21, which is just incredible. He's already had a lifetime of being a member of that orchestra, and he's still only in his 30s. He's performed all around the world, obviously as a recitalist and a concerto soloist. And he even came to Dublin to perform with our own RTE National Symphony Orchestra a number of years ago with Hugh Watkins' Flute Concerto, which was written especially for Adam. So our first performer today is Molly. And Molly de Búrca is a 20-year-old flautist from Cork. She is a third-year music education student in the TUD Conservatory in Dublin. Molly studies flute with Ciarán O'Connell, and she grew up in Cork studying under Maria Mulcahy, whom she completed her ATCL diploma. She plays in various ensembles, including Sinfonua Orchestra and Trinity, and has been a prize winner at the Festival. And Molly is going to perform Bizet's Carmen Fantasy. So I will hand you over now to Molly and Adam.
Cool. Thank you, Búrca. So Molly, you're going to play the Carmen Fantasy by Borne. That's right. Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Okay. Looking forward to it.
Thank you.
Yay, good. I'm going to pretend to be like 300 people.
Thank you.
Or whatever. Good. Great. I loved the character that you put into it. That was fantastic.
Thank you.
And it was really nice to see someone smile. You know, I hope that's something that you do on stage as well as in your living room. It's really nice to see someone actually, you know, having a nice time, even if they're not. You know, at least if you look it, we believe it, and it's infectious to see someone kind of smile on stage. That was great.
Thank you.
And it's quite, it's very exposed playing like this with that piano to an unseen audience. So well done. Very well done. Yeah, so as I said, I loved the character. That's great. Don't lose that at all. Very clear differences all the way through. That was great. And good stamina. I say let's just go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
And hear a little bit of the opening section.
Yeah, no problem.
Can you describe the to those people listening who don't know the piece so well, the introduction with the piano?
Yeah, so the piano starts off first and gives like an introduction. And it's kind of faster paced maybe than when the flute comes in. So it kind of just like sets the mood, the kind of like Spanishy feel behind it, I think. You know, when the piano's playing, and then it kind of settles down again and the flute comes in, and it's kind of like the clouds parting, I suppose. I don't know.
The flute comes in / the diva.
Yeah.
The diva comes in. So can you right from the very first note, can you, I mean, it's actually piano dolce, but the same presence that you had, but maybe just really feel that you're intriguing us a little bit more. Piano dolce has its own color, so it's the beginning of the story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So go that kind of mood.
Okay.
Good. Maybe you could think of a slightly more kind of shimmery vibrato.
Yeah.
A little bit more kind of like if you imagine a violin, like slightly faster, and keep the diaphragm engaged.
Yeah.
With the piano stuff, it's sometimes. I mean, forgive me because sometimes over technology things sound different. I get the impression that sometimes some of the quieter stuff could do with a little bit more physical support.
Yeah.
And actually, you know, when we talk about supporting the sound, it's a physical thing, and it's also a tone thing, intonation and tone. So just lift everything a little bit in those bits. Good. Can you imagine a little bit like you're playing through a straw and you're aiming more towards like the top corner of the room?
Okay.
And keep that air consistent. Make sure there's enough air with quiet playing so that it kind of lifts and projects the sound still.
Yeah.
Better too much air than too little. You know, people get obsessed with having these clean little tiny flute sounds. You don't, which is great. I love that about your playing. But often, you know, in a big hall, it doesn't translate. Whereas if we have enough, sometimes it's better to have a little bit more excessive air because then at least it lifts the sound. So don't be afraid to just put air down the thing.
Okay.
Imagine you're blowing through a little sort of straw. Good. One more time. Now, just be careful. The top note's still part of that whole thing as well. The top note felt a little bit lonely somehow. Don't be afraid of the top note. Blow your way up to the top note.
Okay.
And this time, try and do all these things, but also tell a story. Don't become too obsessed with the things I'm telling you. Know, but also enjoy it as well.
Okay.
And I'm gonna shut up this time.
Okay.
Let's go again. Good. Good. And we can't hear the piano, but here in the end of that phrase, whoop, cables everywhere. Don't relax too much on the E because underneath you we have the accompaniment, which is suddenly going a bit creepy and dark there. So keep the energy through that E. Okay. And in general, actually, and this is a bugbear that I have with a lot of people, students of mine as well, ends of phrases. engage us. Even the last notes, they should never all be too weak. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Keep the music alive. Just the last two bars of that first phrase, and then let's go on. Good. So what I mean is keep the tension going through that E.
Okay.
A bit more. It's not nice. It's a bit more. Good. Good. Now, before I get verbal diarrhea and we run out of time and we've covered one page, I'm not going to be go off too much. But in this section, I liked that it had a kind of noodly quality, which is cool. But I think it should also be legato.
Okay.
So try not to let too many notes stick out. You know what I mean? Think a bit more.
Okay.
Longer phrase and enjoy the hairpins a bit more.
Okay.
Slightly longer, and also just, you know, if you have a nice pianist playing with your orchestra, they will accompany you, but at the same time, don't be too random with the speed. Remember that check going on.
Okay. Yeah.
Great. Just from the allegro. Good. Let's phrase a bit more, or else it has a. This section can sound a little bit like a kind of finger etude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Go a bit more with the hairpins and a bit more enjoyment and excitement, maybe. Good, nice. General thing about hairpins is that don't go for the note, like a single note in the middle of a hairpin. Go for the notes around it as well.
Okay.
In general, we can elongate those notes slightly if we like, give them a certain expression, but we don't want to hit the middle of the hairpin. So, for example, here. In slow motion, those are the notes that are important. You know what I mean? It's more of a hook than a. Okay. Good, and then this nasty but cool bit. Keep the air going with these big intervals. The more we can do with the diaphragm in the air, the less we have to do with the mouth.
Yeah.
The easier big jumps like that become. Just try once more, maybe slightly under tempo, and just really make a conscious effort to keep the airspeed going.
From the allegro?
No, just from the triplet, the sort of jig bit. Good. Don't tongue the triplets. Just kind of blow up to them.
Oh, sugar, sorry.
Keep blowing. Don't, whatever you do, don't stop the air.
Okay.
Go all the way through the bar. One more time. We're just experimenting here. Better. I mean, there's some organisation to do that as well. That will help. Because if there's too much of a panic between low register and high register, that's when we start to have difficulties. So I would go back over that slowly and really practice legato and with a mirror. I'm not making sure you're doing too much here.
Okay.
Good. Let's scoot on before we run out of time. The next bit I really liked. I think if you could even go for even more of a kind of rich, cor anglais kind of sound here.
Yeah.
It was great though. I loved it. But can we just hear a little bit of it again?
Yeah.
Good. Great sound. It's really good. I think you can enjoy the rest a bit more. Use it. Not more than it should be, but it's there. You know what I mean? And I think you could just phrase a little bit more towards the minimum.
Okay.
As well. One more time. Good. A big breath here. Good, and you can do yourself a little bit of a favour. I certainly do. In this section, in the third little mini part of that phrase, you can maybe go a bit less.
Okay.
And then you can save on air. And then can that G be quite expressive? Just from the F. Yeah, and then don't be too fluty at the end, you know what I mean? We don't want... Keep the same kind of... last note of phrase. Very nice though, I love the sound, it's brilliant. Consonants on repeated notes. That's very important. So somewhere like here, don't be too muddy. Often with repeated notes, we just have to give a little bit clearer articulation than we think sometimes.
Yeah.
Great, good. Let's move on to the next section. Can we go from the moderato?
Yeah.
They were nice. It was nice that it was short and it was light, but they could be slightly more lifted, I think, those staccatos. Okay. They felt a little bit aggressive.
Sorry.
And it's nice that there's some vibrato, but still a bit of rhythm. Yep. Not too flippant, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
A bit more nice character though. Oh, I preferred your version. Somewhere in between. I'm going to leave that with you to think about anyway.
Okay.
Good. Carry on.
From hell.
Yeah, no, but we can make it the passage from heaven, because what you're going to do is you're going to go back and practice it slowly.
Yeah.
This worries me a little bit sometimes. Your what is this, left hand?
Yeah.
Sometimes your little fingers kind of doing this, which means that it's not relaxed.
Yeah.
The fingers should always be curved and above the keys, and the moment we do this or this, it means passage work like that is going to be a lot harder.
Okay.
So when you do your technical finger exercises, scales, whatever it is that you use to focus on your fingers, I mean, it should be everything really. Just check in with that kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
There should always be a purpose of our practice, and I think we can always benefit from focusing on certain things at certain times as well. So spend, a good 10 minutes purely thinking of the fingers, and what are they doing, and any kind of tension's bad. The least amount of tension we have when we can play is the better. Okay. So in terms of everything, the fingers really, we shouldn't have to move very much at all.
Yeah.
As long as they're balanced correctly. So as long as, we have good balance here and here. The mouth also shouldn't have to be doing that much movement when we play either. Everything should be about minimizing and not complicating movement.
Yeah.
So you can go back over that section and just luxuriate and feeling good. Yeah. And again, my big bugbear, don't stop the air, don't stop the sound, especially with the tongue as well. The tongue cuts through the airspeed, but it doesn't stop the airspeed.
Yeah.
So why don't we just try a bit of that passage slowly, just maybe from the 5th bar of the moderato, and really think about those things.
Okay.
As slow as you like. Good. Don't do this. Think longer scale.
Okay.
Longer lines. Good. Legato. So take away all the articulation, just everything totally legato.
Okay.
So, and maybe like. That slowly.
Okay.
Good. Much better. Now, with a bit of, as Trevor Y, I think, said, time, patience, and intelligent work. I think Moy said that as well, to be fair. If you can do it slowly and make it sound beautiful and smooth like you just did, you can build it up. It's just a matter of patience and being strict with yourself. Good. That applies to most of this section, I would say. The character was there. Just you now need to do a little bit more kind of physical homework with that as well. The Tranquillo section afterwards, the kind of this weird bridge section, which I think is Borne and not Bizet. PP, I mean, it's a hard moment because we've had all this madness and then suddenly we have to produce this kind of quiet. You did great. I think just again that whole thing I was talking about at the beginning of imagining it playing through a straw, and kind of more up there than down there, you know. With quieter stuff, the tendency is sometimes to roll in, to cramp the sound. Keep it open, is going to help, and of course the diaphragm is going to help as well. Can we hear some of the habanero now?
Yes.
I loved this bit. Good. Great. Yeah, nice. What's the rhythm of this dance? The standard rhythm.
The bum, ba-dum, bum, bum. That one.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Can you have that in your head whilst you're playing the melody? There were times I felt where it could have felt. It was great that you had that kind of seductive quality, but it could also have sounded and felt a bit more like a dance somehow.
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind, and again, think of the longer lines. You know, and try not to breathe in kind of random places.
Yeah, sorry.
No, but it was great. It was great, and maybe a tad quicker, just a little bit.
Yeah.
Good. Nice. Sorry. And I think no, it's fine. I could tell that I could see you were laughing in your eyes.
Yeah.
So I think, you know, the flute is very similar to the voice in many ways, and the way in which we play the flute. Many things are similar to how a singer would approach singing as well. The way we use our bodies, lots of these things, and somewhere like bar 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of this. How can we travel from the bottom note to the top note? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like a singer would really have to sing through that first note in order to arrive up to the second.
Yeah.
So you can just use the tone there, sing through the A to take you up to the G. We don't just want the G to kind of pop out randomly.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We want, and also it's a seventh, and sevenths always have a certain kind of vanilla essence or bitters or something mixed in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So really enjoy that interval a bit more. Just try it slowly, maybe.
Just that interval?
Yeah, and don't stop the air or the sound as you're travelling through the A.
Ugh.
Good, and then, but also don't be afraid of the G.
Yes.
Don't shy away from top notes. You know that often when we're going up in range, we don't need to feel that we have to back off. Just go with the interval.
Yeah.
Great, good. We don't have much longer left, so I think what I was thinking when I heard you play it through the first time, the variation was great, but I think, and I got the accents, but I think what these accent mean to sing. You know, often with accents, people approach them differently. In this repertoire and in this context, it means the melody. So vibrate on them.
Okay.
Is the short of it.
Sorry.
Good. No, it's fine. Maybe just try a tad slower.
Okay.
For now. Good. So basically, hear the theme in your head.
Yeah.
Don't overcomplicate it. It looks like a lot of information. It's not really. You sing the tune, and the rest is decoration.
Yeah. Okay.
So don't even worry for now about getting every note right in the right place. I think just go more for the effect and the tune.
Okay.
For now. Good, nice, yeah, better. I think you could even afford to sing a bit more. Yeah. This is the kind of thing where if we were live, not on the internet, I could play along.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to do that because of delays. It's going to be a nightmare. Good, that was better though, and then you can build that up. And the same applies to the other variations. Good that you didn't play the theme at the beginning of the Chanson de Bohème. In the original, he didn't write the flute there. He just had the piano playing in thirds. Some pianists complain, but make them work.
Yeah.
They have to do it in Liszt.
I need the break after that.
Well, exactly. You know, and if they can play Liszt, they can do that. Now, there are several different ways that you could approach the this movement. It doesn't always have to start too fast, and often if you listen to the recordings of the opera, with this bit, you know, it kind of speeds up as it goes along a little bit. So we have the orchestral part and the piano. Then you come in. You could take it down a notch if you wish.
Yeah.
And you can contrast with that a little bit more, or you can go for this kind of excited kind of quality. It's up to you. Don't be too slow with the Toreadors song. I feel you could have been a bit faster there. And at the end, why don't you go up to a top E? I've got a dog next to me, so I'm. Can you see a little bit? I'm too scared to go to an E. Do you know the fingering?
No.
So it's that
middle
finger, this middle finger, and this trill key.
Okay.
So you could try doing an arpeggio. Maybe not now because you're gonna like kill everyone at home.
Yeah. Okay.
But those are some things to think about. But it was a really nice performance, and I loved all the different characters that you gave it, and it was so nice to see someone enjoying it.
Okay, thank you.
So thanks ever so much. Thank you very
thank
much.
you.
I think we need to move on now to the next person. So
perfect.
Brilliant. Thank you.
Thanks, Emil. Bye.
See you in a bit. Bye.
Thanks, guys. That was an amazing masterclass. I was loving that. And I have to say, I feel really guilty. I should be contributing by playing the piano, but obviously that's not really possible, or would have just added too much complication to proceedings. So thank you so much, Molly, for busting your lung there and not getting the break that you usually would get with the piano parts in between. Just so everyone who joined late, that was Molly de Búrca from Cork, a third-year student at the TUD Conservatory in Dublin. And yeah, what a brilliant first class. Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Molly. So we're going to move on now to Faith Wasson. Faith is an American flautist from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She completed her undergraduate studies at Temple University's Boyer College of Music with Lauren Lind of the Philadelphia Orchestra, and she's currently finishing her master's degree with the wonderful Bill Dowdall at the Royal Irish Academy of Music. And Faith is going to play the first movement of Prokofiev's wonderful flute sonata, sadly, again, unaccompanied, but I'm sure you'll do a wonderful job, Faith. So I'll hand you back over to Adam. Enjoy.
Great, cool. So, needless to say, I think for now, don't worry about the repeats. Yeah, just play through for now. Okay. Cool, enjoy. Yay, good. 300 people clapping. Yay, bravo. Cool. First thing, can I ask, for the B flat at the end, did you use a special fingering?
Yeah.
What was it? I want to copy it.
So I used, let's see, it's the back B flat.
Yeah.
1, 3, and then the first trill key, the third finger, and the C sharp key. It's like a really weird fingering. Yeah, because I was doing the...
Oh, it's a good one.
Yeah. Cool.
I don't have a pen and a paper, which is annoying. And it should be the other way around. I mean, I should be teaching you, really. But there we go. Cool.
Yeah, that's nice. Thanks to Bill. So. Thanks,
Bill. Great, cool. No, I really enjoyed it, and I think I'm not talking about the B flat now. I'm talking about the whole performance. It was you had a great sound, had a lovely dolce, sweet quality to it, which I really enjoyed, and it suited the music as well, for the most part, which was great. Good intonation, many good things. As I was talking about just now to Molly, sometimes, and it is a big rule because this piece shows it in the second bar, repeated notes. They just need a slight more kind of consonant adding to them in general. So the A's in the second bar, always, when I hear this piece, I could always do with more. So just try and kind of make them a little bit clearer, I would say. And I think what we can do with the theme of this piece is we can distinguish a little bit more between the tenutos and the accents. So the first 3 notes are within a bigger phrase, but they all have their own kind of form as well. Does that make sense? Just have a think about those things, and let's hear the opening again. Great, yeah, the A's were fantastic. They're really clear. Make sure the same applies to the E. We can hear that. And I suppose what I mean about the first 3 notes is that they shouldn't all sound... It's great because it's so smooth and the colour's so consistent. But I think the first 3 notes don't necessarily have to have exactly the same feeling. Because especially the second bar, the piano changes from B flat major. Yeah. So the second A can have a slightly different feel to the first. You know what I mean? Something there to think about. And then this accent again, a little bit like in the Borne. It's an expressive accent, I think, at the end of the phrase. It's like a hug. Okay. He was writing this piece, you probably know this, but he was, for those who don't know, during the Second World War, he was in exile. And he wrote this piece at the same time that he wrote Cinderella, I think. So a lot of the qualities of his ballet music are in this piece. Have a listen through to Cinderella, and also like the classical symphony and the Fifth Symphony, I think, share a lot of kind of qualities of this piece. So the opening scene, this isn't Cinderella, it's Romeo and Juliet, but imagine a kind of balcony scene or something like that, something very dreamy and sweet and lush, I think. Verbal diarrhea. Let's go back to the beginning. Great, that was beautiful. That was really beautiful. Also, I think the first edition was, I think this is correct. Maybe Google it, just in case. But I think it was andantino originally, not moderato. And I liked the way you played that because it didn't feel too harried or hurried.
I have written Andante.
Oh.
Yeah. So.
Yay. Cool. Great, that was beautiful. And now, C major, I think you did change the colour. I get the impression that the person on the 20th row wouldn't have noticed it as strongly. So maybe make it even more, whatever that C major means to you, give it a slightly different flavour than you just did, I think. Could be more dramatic. Can we just go from maybe the last 2 bars of the D major into the C major? Good. I think change the colour without changing the world. That was maybe a little bit too much, but great that you did it. But still the same story, just a slightly different colour. But great, I definitely heard it. Cool. Now the section between Figure 1 and the kind of Cossack moment is like a little bridge section. So it can feel slightly nervous, I think. It doesn't have to be too kind of settled. I think the articulation, if we look at that, it creates a slight feeling of skittishness, just a little bit. So it has a slight feeling of movement there. And then we have a motif here that's a kind of military motif. It's like a hint of what's going to come in the development section later on, because I think there is a certain amount of parody in this piece, that it was written during, very kind of tumultuous times, and he's kind of mocking institutions and the military and all, politics and all these things. So I think you can enjoy that. Ba-da-ba-bum, quite direct there. So let's go from Figure 1. Good. Yeah, so maybe this bit can be a hair faster than the beginning, just a little bit.
Okay.
I liked the speed of the 3rd bar that you just played. That was perfect, I think. Just a little bit more movement. And then very direct. Dim, ba-da-ba-bum, with that rhythm. Good, now a different key, so a different colour. Good. Now that upbeat, don't be too kind of blasé about it. It has to be kind of, I mean, I think this is very much a flute piece. I don't think the violin version works as well. To be perfectly frank, I don't think it does. I think he was very much writing for the flute. He really wants to write for the flute, and he, in all of his orchestral music, he writes so beautifully for the flute. He knew what he wanted. But actually this moment, I think, works very well on the violin. and we can think of a kind of upbeat there. You know what I mean? Not too kind of blasé. And then these semiquavers, I think, can be quite long and impassioned. It's kind of like a mad Cossack moment, and you've got to compete with the piano, who's kind of got these mad semiquavers underneath you, so a bit more here, I would say. Good. Just as a kind of experiment one time, you don't have to do this in the real thing. Can you sing on each of those semiquavers? A little bit more kind of Tarzan thing. just as an exercise to really put expression into all of them, and a good clear tongue and a good airspeed. Clearer tongue, maybe. Good. Don't tense the throat. Keep everything open. Good. Going in the right direction. I'll leave it with you. Can I ask where you tongue, out of interest?
I think it's right in between the back of the teeth.
The back of the top teeth.
Yeah.
You might want to experiment. I mean, this is very much up to you and your teacher. And whatever I say in any class, you can roll up into a ball and put it in the bin afterwards. But you might want to consider tonguing more forward, because in passages like this, it really helps.
Okay.
Because it just, I mean, the tongue acts as a valve. You know what I mean? It should never be like a kangaroo kind of boxing. It should be more just a release. And the closer the tongue is to the where the airstream exits the embouchure, the cleaner the tongue stroke will be. So I'm going to do a repeated E flat going from the back to the front of my mouth. I don't know if you can hear that over technology, but it naturally gets cleaner and clearer the further forward I get.
Okay.
So it's just something you might want to think about. Also, I mean, a lot of French flute players in the French school is very much about forward tonguing. I think because the French language is more kind of suited naturally to this kind of position of the tongue. Something to think about anyway. And in a place like this, it really helps. You have to work less.
Would that be more touching like the top lip?
It differs from person to person. Some people think of it almost like you have a grain of rice in between your lips and you're spitting it out. Some people, and I think this goes for me as well, is more the kind of the bottom of the top set of teeth on the top lip. Mm-hmm. So I'm just touching, the bottom of my top teeth here.
Yeah.
But something to think about. I could go on about that for about 5 hours. I'm not going to. Good, great. So just for now, whatever, let's just hear that Kosaki bit with lots of heft and power and expression. Good, and I think give a good kick to the da-da-da-dum at the end.
Okay.
It's always hard to kind of cut through the piano in this section, so the bits in the bottom register keep quite full. And actually, it's forte until the last 3 beats of that whole section. People have a tendency to diminuendo too soon, so just keep it going, I would say. Good, that was really cool though, I enjoyed it. It had a good character to it. Let's carry on for now. Good. As the intervals get wider, be careful not to become too tripletty.
Yeah.
With the rhythm, you know what I mean? Keep it kind of 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. But we need to combine that with a sense of a longer line, because sometimes it gets a little bit disjointed, and I think it should sound like a long breath of kind of gorgeousness. You know what I mean? Yeah. Think kind of rolling landscape here, nothing too kind of chopped up. Maybe try once slower and as quavers. And think every note is leading to the next, and this kind of long line of beautiful concentration doesn't stop, it just keeps going. Like if you imagine, I don't know, imagine you're on the top of a hill and you're looking down and you just see endless kind of green and lush landscape around you. That kind of feel, just endless beauty. Nice, carry on. It's great. Great, beautiful. And I'm going to say something that might sound a bit mean. Sorry, I can just see Robin, the dog, is kind of building a nest on the sofa behind me. This sounds like I'm being a bit mean, but get into the habit when you're playing things under tempo to not change the rhythm or speed through certain bits. So, for example, here. Keep singing beautifully through every note. Don't be tempted to kind of rush through it.
Yeah.
It's a good habit to get into. Good. That was so lovely. I really enjoyed it. Now maybe the same thing with a little bit more of a shimmery vibrato on each note.
Okay.
There's Robin, look, making a little appearance. She's listening to you. Okay. Long line. Keep it going. Beautiful. And now with the rhythm that's printed, but exactly the same quality of concentration that you just used. Good. So straight away we've gone from beautiful landscapes to kind of da-dee, and try and avoid that. Even though the notes are shorter now, try and keep the same kind of line. So even through the semiquavers, I'm still traveling to the next note. It doesn't stop. Good. Better could still be more in the language of the first that you did without the rhythm changes. I'll leave that with you. Does that make sense though?
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
Yeah. Work on it slowly, and I think you get the idea. But this bit should sound very smooth and beautiful. Nice sound. It had a lovely sweet quality to it. Beautiful. Good. Can we now go to figure 4? The next section. Good. Avoid having some notes longer than others. Don't give too much emphasis to certain notes, I think. If what I mean is that occasionally I heard, and it should be. The idea of this section, which is kind of bonkers and mad, and you know the opening section is so beautiful, and then we have this long development that goes a bit insane. I think he's, as you can see, he's taking the main melody of the movement, which is beautiful, and turning it into something very different and slightly more ugly. And again, the parody of the military that I was talking about. And I think, you know, he's showing how with life as well, you can take an idea that is beautiful and lovely, but then it actually, in reality, it becomes menacing and quite nasty. So I think that's the whole point of this section. It shouldn't sound too friendly. Quite mechanical. Good. Nice. So 2 things. The C sharps in general in this register for all of us have a tendency to be a bit sharp. So just bring them down, but also bring them down in colour. They're often just a little bit too kind of pale. We just need to add a few more kind of darker shades into it. Get into the habit of that. Even with something like L'Après-midi, you know. Sort of slightly darker vowel sound to C sharps. And how are you tonguing the triplets?
I was them.
Oh, sorry, you disappeared as soon as you just as you explained it. Your internet went. You doing what?
Triple tonguing.
Da-ga-da-dun.
Yeah.
What you could experiment with in this section is instead of da-ga-da-da, is da-ga-da-ga, for example. Sorry. So you could use a slight diaphragm kick on the fourth of them. Da-ga-da-ga, da-ga-da-ga, da-ga-da-ga. You could give it a go. It might be weird, but it might work. Keep going. Good. You know what? I think that has potential to work very well for you. Yeah, because sometimes the triple tonguing, you know, trying to get the two T's together can be a bit of a ball ache. So just experiment with that instead, and you can use the diaphragm to kind of give a kick to the last one if need be. And it works in, you know, other pieces like in Daphne's and Chloe and things like that, where there's lots of intricate tonguing passages. It works very well.
Okay.
I'll leave that with you. Good. Can we go from the last line number 4 of that page? I presume we have the same edition. Before the fortissimo.
Yep.
Great. Good. Now, this B, can you really sing through it?
Oh, yeah, sure.
More melodic. Good. Vibrato.
Yeah.
Good. And then really blow your way down the scale afterwards. Take a bit of time here, you know. You can, because the piano doesn't play here. Just as much time as you need to sing your way down. Good. And you know, sometimes when we're playing in the high register, like right at the top, we should almost feel like we're playing low. You know what I mean? So sometimes as you go up in register, you should think down. Because I think often we have a tendency to see something up there and we go, ah! You know what I mean? And we tend to throw and everything. And if you can go back and practice it slowly and really think about not tensing the jaw, keeping the throat open, and just singing your way through. And in your scale practice, maybe you can think about lingering over the tops a little bit more. And singing the top of the range, not panicking.
Yeah.
I mean, have a think about that in your practice. Now, can we hear figure 5? We have to stop in a couple of minutes, but let's just hear a little bit of figure 5. Good. It sounded like a louder version of the beginning, but I think it could also sound like a more impassioned version of the beginning. Without giving away too much too soon, because we've still got a few miles to go. in this section, but a bit more vibrato, a little bit faster tempo, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay.
I think that's okay. Good. Remember C sharps?
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to maybe use some of these as well sometimes, just to darken the colours of the C sharp. And then we have the military. So the straight away that can be quite to contrast there. One more time. It was great. Good. So with the triplets and the theme, just be careful not to be too kind of vague about them. Yeah. And just one last thing to say for you to think about. It's beautiful, your sound, and what you're doing is great. Sometimes I'm hearing a little bit of throat noise.
Okay.
And that obviously is a sign that you're tensing here.
Tensing,
yeah. It's really important for us to keep the chest and the throat relaxed when we play. We don't want to constrict the muscles here, and I think sometimes when we're playing down in the bottom register or up high, we or quietly, we want to trap the sound somehow. It's like a psychological thing, and with that, sometimes we can grip the fingers maybe as well. So in your practice, really think about these things. They're very important. Think about really opening up here, keeping relaxed, and give extra attention to the places you know you have a tendency to tense up in. So, for example, in loud playing, really focus on keeping this open, or quiet playing, or whatever that may be. It's a weird kind of fight or flight thing we have. I think we naturally kind of go tense to help us in difficult times, but actually the body works best and quicker when it's relaxed. So just something for you to think about there. But anyway, it sounds great. It was a really nice performance. Thank you for the B flat fingering. And yeah, sounds great. Thanks ever so much. I think we're going to have a pleasure. Thank you. I think we're going to have a 10-minute break now. And here's Vikra.
Hey guys, listen, that was great. I don't know if it's just me, but I'm finding that the sound quality is working really, really well. So, or else it's my ears are adapting, but it's sounding brilliant to me.
Yeah, it's good. It's great.
Thank you so much, Faith. Just for those who might have come in halfway through that was Faith Wasson, who is studying with Bill Dowdall at the Royal Irish Academy of Music. And yeah, brilliant class on Prokofiev. It's actually making me very sad because we were supposed to have Adam play that at the festival this year, but at least it's great to see you working on it, which is fabulous. Just to say, I forgot to mention to anyone who's watching on YouTube, if you go to the live chat, and we're getting some really great questions in already from a lot of viewers, but if you've got anything specific you want to ask Adam, just type it in there and we'll do our best to get through as many as we can at the Q&A session at 4:30. So we're just going to give Adam and all of you a 10-minute break, and we'll see you back in 10 minutes.
Bye.
Hey, Rebecca.
Hello.
I'll just wait for Adam to rejoin. Hello as well to everyone watching on YouTube. I hope you're all back. For anyone who's just joining us and wondering what's going on, welcome to this online masterclass with Adam Walker, delivered by the Wicklow Festival and the National Concert Hall. We've had two wonderful classes so far with Molly de Búrca and with Faith Wasson. And thank you, Adam, for your wonderful coaching. You know, I'm really enjoying it anyway, so I hope everyone else is. Just before we move on to Rebecca, again, we've had some great questions coming in on YouTube. So if anyone has any more questions for Adam, in about 35 minutes at 4:30, we will be running through them in a short Q&A session. So any questions you have, music related, non-music related, just pop them in there and we'll get through them as we can. So to introduce Rebecca now, Rebecca Archer is from Limerick. I have a soft spot for Limerick. My mom's from Limerick, so up Limerick. And Rebecca is studying in Cork, actually, the Cork School of Music, her master's with Eilish O'Sullivan, or does she pronounce it Eilish? Eilish or Eilish? Eilish, okay, even the third option, Eilish. Rebecca graduated with a first class honours B.Mus degree in October 2018, and she's gained extensive performance experience in both solo and ensemble contexts with opportunities to perform all over Ireland. So welcome, Rebecca, and Rebecca's going to perform, again, Prokofiev, but the fourth movement of his sonata. So I'll hand you back over to Adam and Rebecca.
Great, so we're skipping on, we're missing the middle two movements. Going straight to the other end.
The finale, yes.
Why not? Cool, okay, enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
good. Bravo, clapping to everyone again. Great, good. Thank you very much. I liked very much you had a nice clean sound all the way through, which is very nice to hear. I was wondering though if sometimes actually you could think about ways in which you could maybe ease off a little bit here. I mean, a movement like this is going to show this up very much so, which is why I will talk about it. But I think if you could maybe decrease a little bit of the pressure around your embouchure, not tighten quite so much, you'd have a little bit more flexibility. Well, actually, that's me being terribly polite. A lot more flexibility, which I think for a movement like this would help a lot. So we can explore that a little bit maybe as well. Good. What I did get was the brightness, which is nice. Allegro con brio, that was great. However, I think what we were talking about with the first movement, and this piece having a kind of narky quality to it, and it's a parody. So I think it's kind of, this movement is also quite balletic, like the rest of the piece. It's very dancey, but there's also this kind of mechanical energy, this sort of rhythm, machine-like, and places like it's kind of like these hefty machines kind of gone mad, you know what I mean? So you can go for that quality a little bit more, I think. Let's go back to the beginning.
Yeah.
Good. So, one thing I would say, the breath will help as well, because what's happening, you're going...
Yeah.
If you could just... There's no one... You've got all the time in the world before you have to start this movement, so just breathe in the sound that you want to create a little bit more, and psychologically I think that will help as well. Great. So, you know, I think I love the way that you have the continuity of sound in the penultimate bar. If you could apply that to the rest of it as well, I think it would help.
Okay.
Because even though, for example, in bar 2 we have staccato, we still want to hear the intervals and the tone behind. So don't kind of spit them out too much. Think a little bit more in terms of like a bit more vocal with those, I think would help. We still want to hear the notes. And when you see a big cluster of sort of semiquavers and that kind of thing, blow through them, sing through them, think vocally with those as well. Travel through them a little bit more. Cool. Let's go again.
Yep.
And use the first 4 notes as an upbeat, as a springboard into the A. Kind of think through them. Yeah. Good. And also places like here, sing your way up to the top note. Just keep the airspeed healthy, I think. Yeah. One more time, that was great.
Okay.
Good. Good. Great. Don't misunderstand me though. When with those quavers, vocal but still short.
Just so short. Yeah.
Yeah. What you did was actually a good exercise, and I think when we do build up a piece, you know, slow to fast, one should keep the articulation quite long. Mm-hmm. So if I was practicing this and I was building it up, I would first of all practice legato. Etc. And then I'd practice it with articulation, but all long. And then the metronome would go up to 72 or whatever. And then when it's up to tempo, but with the long articulation, we've built it up in a way that the tone is always present. It's easier for the articulation, the intonation, and then we can make it short, but we've built it up with the skeleton there and the kind of the makeup of the notes and the intervals. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No.
So you can think about that in the way in which you build up a piece, I think, would be a good approach. Now, can we hear it shorter, but with exactly the same quality as you had? Yeah, because that was fantastic. Nice, great, much better, much better. I think, you know, this bit, it's like a kind of, this is the kind of lever of a machine going mad here. Can they sound a bit more bonkers?
Okay.
Really not very human somehow.
Yeah.
Almost rhythm.
Almost. It needs a bit more.
Needs a bit more, and a bit more kind of rhythmic vitality, I think, would help.
Yeah. More kind of, you're trying to emphasize off the beat.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. Good. Use the diaphragm and keep this open. That will help. Good. I'll leave it with you to think about.
Yeah.
I think it's also the fingers is going from the C sharp to the F sharp.
Yeah, that's
quite quick. Yeah, of course. Something to think about anyway. Cool. Let's carry on.
Yeah.
Good. One more time. Rhythm.
Rhythm.
Remember, it's a dance.
Yeah.
So think of, you know, step and rhythm and all these things.
Yeah.
Good. So, one observation. Sometimes you're breathing in slightly random places.
Okay.
And you know, so if you can sneak them in and make them invisible, that's fine. But that they're not so invisible. So just be careful. I mean, if you can, try and breathe in more kind of mathematically sort of correct places. If you do have to sneak in a breath, maybe try and be a bit more discreet about it. Can you try once more from 32 and try going through until the next section? So not breathing there.
Okay.
See what happens. Big breath. Good. That was great. I think in general, kind of bully yourself in your practice to kind of get through longer phrases without breathing.
Yeah.
Because it's often just a case of pushing our boundaries at first, and then it becomes easier. And good. So the rhythm sometimes is still a little off, and I think the one thing that keeps happening is I'm not hearing the. Blow your way through that. I think. Good. And this marcato section was great. I think I missed a little bit of dance. Somehow. Can you enjoy it a bit more?
Yeah.
Why not just try bang on there once and just a little bit more kind of zest?
Yeah.
Good. Let's think at the beginning tempo, like a bit more lift on the beats, I think.
Okay.
I might actually make it easier and keep, as you're double tonguing, keep the airspeed consistent, because then the tongue has more chance to kind of bounce a little bit. Tempo. One more time. No, but good. Until that was great. It had a really nice feel to it, and the tempo was a lot better. Places like 33, I think, don't feel that you have to get bogged down too much in individual notes.
Okay.
Keep the air free and aim more towards the end of the phrase. That would make places like that a little easier, I think. Yeah. I always say that to my students, that blow through difficult passages like this. That the air really helps quite often with what we're doing. Good, nice. I enjoyed that. Let's carry on.
Yep.
Good. So the bit we have to focus on here are the bottom notes.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think the thing is, sing through them. Why don't we try once without the kind of arpeggios?
Yep.
Yeah. And try and go for the most kind of uniform sound that you can in terms of dynamic and expression. Good. What was nice about the top notes is that you vibrated on them. You didn't on the bottom ones. Can you sing through them as well?
Yeah.
Perfect. Nice. Yeah, great. Now add in the arpeggio, but slowly.
Slowly. Yeah.
Great. So, can you sing through the arpeggio as well? Not with vibrato, but just in terms of enjoying them. Yeah, longer line. Better. The last one was a bit random, but yeah. Good. Yeah, that makes a huge difference, because then we have this wall of colour. Whereas before it sounded a bit stressed and kind of. But if we can think of like these quicker passages, we have, as I said earlier as well, we have to think of them vocally. You know what I mean? Yeah. And that really helps when we can build up a piece and get it faster. If we can start really slowly and vocally, we can carry that with us. And often like when we hear someone playing and it's a kind of virtuosic faster passage, when it sounds the most brilliant and effective is when there's still a good quality of tone and a healthy tone behind it, which is why it's so important to build things up slowly and with patience. And it is so funny, like often when I ask my students to play things slowly, often it's so fast. I'm like, no, really slowly. It's nice to luxuriate and really slow things down. Good. Yeah, I'll leave that with you. Another thing, what I was talking about with this, if you could manage to kind of loosen that off a bit, it would make big intervals like that a lot easier as well.
Yeah.
Could we just try something? What's your favorite note in the kind of bottom register towards the top end, like between C and G?
B.
B. Yeah, perfect. Can you give me a nice B kind of mezzo forte with relaxed as embouchure as possible? Nice, I'd buy that. Now, can you play that and go up the octave, but try not to move your mouth at all. Just use the diaphragm. Take your time. Take your time. Slower.
Lower?
Yeah. Good, and sing on the top one as well. Be positive. Good. Now, last thing, same thing, but when you breathe, can you relax the jaw? Think like a slight kind of hot potato feel here. Don't, because I think one of your habits when you're breathing is to tense, and that's not going to help you. So if you can set up the note really kind of physically relaxed, good. As legato as you can, so the top note isn't hit out, it just kind of comes out of the lower one. Now this time the same thing, but then breathe and then time. Really relax the mouth. I could see a little bit of...
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just use the diaphragm. Good, and you can breathe. So you have to breathe and then do it. Good, because I think if you can start to think about doing larger intervals and keeping this relaxed and engaging the diaphragm more, that's going to help you a bit with this. And then you can practice slightly larger intervals as well. The second chapter of the Moyes de la Sonority book is perfect for that. Anyway, detour there, but hopefully a useful one. Cool, can we go to the middle section? So it's big figure 37 in my part. Yeah. Good, nice. So I think it was Molly I was talking about playing to the
ceiling.
Exactly.
To the corner. Yeah.
Can we have a little bit of that?
Yeah.
And again, the similar thing about playing through a straw. So a little bit more freedom of air going up. Good. Much better, nice. And now with that, can you just kind of lift the bottom register a bit? It sounds a little sad. Enjoy the tenuto as well. Nice. Good. Nice. Good sound. Now, in terms of phrasing, I think you can sigh a little bit more. On the... that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's a longer phrase, but with little kind of enjoy the phrase markings a bit more, a little bit more conversational. Good. I think you could sneak in a breath if you wanted to. Because it'd be sad not to have the nice accent on the D at the end there.
Okay.
Good. Yeah, nice. So they're like tiny little conversations put into a bigger sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So I think even more you can enjoy the... And then we have that accent. Obviously, that was grossly exaggerated. But you know what I mean? You can just kind of cut them up a little bit.
Yeah.
And then stick them up together. I'll leave that with you. Let's go on to the next little phrase, the mezzo piano phrase.
Yeah.
Good. It sounds a little bit too forthright.
Oh, okay.
I think this whole section can just be a little bit more inward and veiled, because you know the piano bit before this it just ends so beautifully.
Okay.
So it can be a little more vulnerable sounding, and this semiquaver interval can always have a touch of something not quite right about it, you know. And then we have this interval which isn't nice. Semiquaver equals a touch more kind of cocoa in the sound, I think.
Yeah.
Once more from that.
Yeah.
Good, and then you can enjoy the tenutos much more. Good, and as I was saying to Faith earlier with the... It needs to be uniform, and the same applies here. It's quite military strict, so don't make certain notes longer than others.
Okay.
Just from there?
Yeah.
Nice, good. Now accents, you know, I think we have a tendency sometimes to see an accent and think, bah. You know what I mean? But actually, often they're not. They're more expressive, and definitely that's the case here, I think. More of a warmth.
Yeah.
Just try that.
Yeah.
Yeah, much nicer. Good. Next bit.
Yep. Oh, sorry.
Good, and he writes espressivo, so maybe you could add something a little bit more full-bodied here, because we're going to mezzo forte from piano as well, so just something a bit more warm maybe. Let's try.
Yeah.
Good. So just another last observation is like sometimes I feel like I'm just saying like and again and this, but it's just because we have a limited time and I want you to get your money's worth. Some phrases I think you could start with a slightly softer consonant or a vowel. Or I think sometimes you can just find a certain different type of articulation that's a little softer. Because occasionally what's happening is at the start of the phrase is being presented as the most important note of the phrase.
And it's not.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So, you know, we don't even have to always tongue with the tongue.
Yeah.
As silly as that sounds, you know, sometimes we can use a ha, a softer attack as well, which again the diaphragm can help with. So can we just try that again, but with a softer front of the note?
From the note?
Yeah. Good. So, you know, just really quickly, because we have 1 minute left.
Yes.
In a place like that, what can help, and you can do this in your practice, if the tongue is in position, and then you remove it, and then just slightly after you remove it, you can release the air. So you're setting up the embouchure, releasing the tongue, and then blowing. Just try once.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's better than last time. keep experimenting with that, but I think the more different attacks we can use in general, the better. Yeah, because you know it's a tool of expression for us, the tongue, in the same way as the bow is for a string player, and we don't always have to tongue in the same place or with the same attack, you know. So good. So I think have a think about loosening up a bit here, and that's going to free up your playing a bit more. But very well done. Really enjoyed it. Thanks ever so much.
Yes, thank you very much.
Thank you. And I think we're going to have a Q&A now, so please ask nice questions.
Hey guys, listen, thanks so much for that. I'm so sorry we can't spend longer. I think for everyone, you know, I was enjoying all the classes so much. We could have gone on at least double again probably, but thank you all so much anyway. And it worked, and no one's internet collapsed, so that's really great.
Very cool.
So yeah, I will kick things off with, I think we're just waiting for Molly maybe to come back as well. But we've had some really... Oh, is Molly here?
Molly's here.
Yeah, hi.
Oh, brilliant. Sorry, Molly, I couldn't see you there. Right, well, why don't we just go in the order you guys played? Like, 'cause you all played, let's say we'll go Molly, Rebecca, Faith, and then there's a few questions that came in on YouTube. So why don't you guys ask whatever questions you have?
Can I just say something quickly before you ask?
Oh,
bravo everyone who played. You were all fantastic. It was really nice working with all of you. I didn't get a chance to say. Thanks ever so much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Pleasure.
well done, everyone.
So here we go.
Okay. Well, as I'm sorry. Well, thanks first of all, obviously, for everything. It's been amazing. I was just wondering if you have any like kind of tips or advice, I suppose, for people to like stay motivated when the majority of kind of events and concerts and everything have been cancelled.
Yes. It's interesting because I mean, obviously now we're several weeks into this new kind of hopefully temporary way of life. And everyone goes through different phases with this. You know, some people panicked right away. Some people are starting to panic now. You know, everything sinks in at a different time. For me personally, I had a break from the flute and kind of a lot of music as well when the whole lockdown started, and I've really enjoyed focusing on other things. In terms of students and stuff, I think the main thing, if you're wanting to keep yourself motivated, is to really plan your practice very efficiently and stick to a schedule. Give yourself 2 days off a week, because you know later in life you're unlikely to be able to do that as well. Give yourself time to breathe, but I think, you know, design a really good warm-up. Stick to that. Use this opportunity to really delve into tone exercises and, you know, scales and all these things that you might not always have time to when you have, you know, upcoming exams or recitals or this, that and the other. Now's the time to really slow down and enjoy these things that actually are very important. Me personally, I mean, I've not having concerts right on the horizon, I've only really been practicing technical stuff and sound and that kind of thing, and I'm very happy to do that. I think if you can enjoy practicing 2 notes phrased beautifully with a nice sound, that you're kind of onto something at a time like this. We all need to slow down a bit. And on the on the flip side of that, I think there are lots of people who feel that they're kind of having to do 10,000 million things every day, and that can also be quite dangerous. So I think definitely give yourself a couple of days off a week, and don't feel pressured into having to conquer the world and take up knitting and clowning and juggling and cooking and making hipster sourdough every day. If you don't want to, it's fine. And 2 hours of good practice a day is way better than 4 hours of not good practice. I think another thing that I certainly benefit from is sometimes doing something for 10 minutes, for example, in a really efficient kind of way, and then having a break and going back to it. And I think for most people at the moment, now's a good time to do that, because we're not constricted with time in the same ways we normally are. And I think also for students, now's a really good time to prepare excerpts and that kind of thing, because preparing excerpts is about listening to the music and learning the parts that are going on around you, rather than just learning that solo, or it's about context. So now is a good time to listen through to complete symphonies and all that kind of thing.
Yeah that's great, thank you.
Okay.
Great. So Faith, do you want to fire away?
Yeah, so you sort of already answered partially my question, but I guess my question would be, how during your regular working versus now, how is your practice different, or what was your routine before and now what is it now?
Well, yeah, good question. I mean, to be honest, I'm quite busy with concerts. I'm lucky to do what I do, and career-wise, I'm very happy with what I have. Lots of a variety of concerts and work, which is great. But sometimes I find that I'm kind of a bit last minute in my approach. Don't practice or what I say. Basically, what I mean. That's not something I would endorse doing, especially not as a student. But I think in the profession, you don't always have as much time to do what you would like, and often you're having to kind of squeeze in time to practice and this, that, and the other. And I think, as I was just saying before to Molly, now I have just been doing kind of technical stuff, whereas in the past I'd been having to learn this and learn that. And I think in that sense, it's just a sense of luxuriating in time and slowing down. So, but I think now I'm getting to the point where actually I would quite like to start, learning new music again. So I think it could also be a good opportunity for us all to maybe delve into repertoire that isn't as familiar to us. So that's something that I'm going to try and do. Oh, good silence.
I was just waiting. I was waiting for Rebecca just to go.
Oh, sorry.
sorry.
Confusion. We all seem to have really similar questions. Mine was originally going to be, how did you juggle your working life with practice? But you can.
No, I mean, that's fair enough. I mean, I think normally away from this, I sometimes get frustrated with my students when, because they do have lots on and they have academic classes and this, that, and the other, but they do have a lot more time at their disposal than I do, I think. And I would love to go back sometimes to that time of life where you do have time to explore music and practice and this kind of thing. And I think now sometimes I have that, and often as musicians, you especially if you have family or whatever as well, you have to snatch time when you can get it, which means you have to be really efficient with your time. And I think that's something that needs to be learned. Time management. Why do we practice? How do we practice? Also, what I was saying about practicing two notes and phrasing them beautifully and this kind of thing. If we can apply that to our general kind of idea about music and practice, this idea of doing something beautifully with meaning, I think often we waste a lot of time in our practice. If we can have an intent, if we can have focus, and if we can have patience and a structure and a plan, that doesn't necessarily have to be 600 million hours a day, especially as we don't have to work out, bowings and fingerings, and we just have 2 and a bit registers or whatever. So, we can, one of the nice things about being a flute player actually is that we can afford ourselves, interests outside of music, and we can cultivate many different parts of our lives in a way that is sometimes trickier if you're a string player or pianist, for example. So yeah, it's a matter of patience and intelligent practice, I think.
Great. Well, listen, guys, thank you all so much for your wonderful playing. I really enjoyed meeting you all online, and look forward to seeing you all play in hopefully live concerts in the not too distant future. And hopefully, look, maybe one day you'll get to meet Adam in person again, which would be really nice.
But not Robin here.
Okay, not Robin. I'm going to just ask a few questions that have come in on YouTube, Adam. So Thomas asks, have you got any top tips for practicing and playing the high third register softly and diminuendo, etc.?
Okay. Top register in general, so not just quiet playing, but the whole of the top register, I think it's the last thing we learn as beginners. We focus on the middle register and the bottom register. We come to the top register last. So that's going to kind of have a lasting effect later on in our lives in a way. And it's the register that in a way needs the most amount of work. I think people often have a tendency to squeeze the top register a little bit. And I think one thing that I can say is that it's very important to keep relaxed here and in the throat. We obviously need a slightly larger air pressure for the top register. So as a result of a faster airspeed, the lips will be working more anyway. But with that, we shouldn't tense the jaw too much. If I play a scale from the bottom register to the top register, my setup here doesn't actually change that much. And I think that's quite sort of key in that we need to use the diaphragm to move between registers, not the embouchure too much. So try and do exercises going from the bottom registers to the top registers and using the mirror, trying not to move too much here and using the diaphragm more. Think vocally, don't scream out the top register, and keep the throat open. In terms of quiet playing, I think often people have a tendency to roll in the top register when they play quietly. So scales are fantastic for this. As you're going up, don't make sure using the mirror that you're not rolling in automatically. And think round with the embouchure. Don't think kind of post-box shape. Think round. Focus on the inside of the lip a little bit more, and use those embouchure muscles to help and support with the diaphragm as well. Consistent air pressure and airspeed will always help with these kind of things. In terms of exercises for the top register, I mean, there are endless. One that I think is quite good, if we think of bell sounds, kind of doing kind of sound, where you imagine the sound physically like this, doing. One exercise is you can take an arpeggio in the top register, let's say C major. So if this is horrendous on your ears because of technology, just please someone tell me. Play maybe a few bell sounds. And then hold a long note. Etc. Try not to move too much here. Use the support. And the nice quality that you can find on the bell sound, try and sustain the long note as well.
Okay, great. Listen, thanks, Adam. I think that probably answers the next question as well in terms of advice playing large intervals and maintaining the same color dynamic throughout. I think the point you're making about not changing too much, I presume, pretty much answers that as well.
There is that also. I think in terms, we shouldn't always be too scientific, and we also have to think about color and the sound that we have in our head as well. So don't get mad and kind of scientific about everything. In terms of, actually, can you just reiterate the question?
Exactly. So the question was this time, advice on playing large intervals and maintaining the same color and dynamic.
Yeah. Cool. So I think one thing that helps with this is that the bottom register shouldn't be too hollow all the time. So for example, if you think of the Trevor Y book 1, we have the aquarium, which is used as an exercise for a pale colour. This is a very nice colour, but for me personally, it should be used more as an effect. Your go-to colour should be somewhere kind of more in between that and a darker colour. And then he stipulates the opposite kind of colour, which would be so quite a dark colour. If we could find something kind of in between that, in the bottom register, I think for me that translates better into the middle and upper registers, and it's an easier colour to mould into the circumference of the flute. And then as you're practicing scales, you can think about the uniform of sound. Whereas from a distance as well, it doesn't quite sit as nicely. So not too pale in the bottom register, I would say. And if you can somehow try and think bottom register when you're playing in the top register, and think top register when you're playing in the bottom register to kind of even out these tone colours a little bit more, that can help as well. Yeah, and of course, in terms of the quieter interval leaps as well, you don't want to be too quiet in the bottom register, because then what often happens is when you go high, you get a little bit more at the bottom, so that you can ghost up into the top a bit more. De La Sonority by Moyes, I think the second chapter of that, which I mentioned earlier, is very good for flexibility. And using the diaphragm more than using the lips will help as well.
Okay, thanks, Adam. And then
verbal diarrhea, because this is the thing that I get. Consistent airspeed, I think, is really important, and that's something that I say a lot to my students. Always having a freedom of air will help. I'm going to close that now. Carry on, sorry.
Sorry, two other quick questions, Adam. One in here from Lindsay says, any advice on circular breathing?
Oh, I've never even dared do that before in my life. I have no idea. I'm not the person to ask. Ask Google.
Okay.
One thing I would say is that, I'm sure it can help in certain pieces. I haven't ever really felt the need for it, because I think, the breath is very much a part of the phrase and what we do musically, and for a singer as well. So if we can breathe in natural places that have, intelligence behind them, and it's fine. The breath can be part of the phrase. So I think often, we can use the breaths to help us and not feel that we have to shy away from them, as long as they're in, decent places and they're not like,
Okay, and then the last question here is from Tilly, and she just says, do you use forward tongue only, or a mixture of forward and further back?
I mainly use forward tonguing, but I have to say I often tongue in different places depending on the music and the effect needed. So, for example, if I was playing Bach and there was a scalic passage, I'm less likely to tongue forward because I would want more of a longer, elongated articulation. So let me think of so for an arpeggiated pattern in CP bar, for example, I would use it forward because I would want the notes to be slightly shorter. For something scalic, maybe more. I'm thinking more a softer sound. And then, you know, starts of phrases as well. Sometimes I don't use any tongue. If I want a really soft attack. So I think as many tongue strokes as you can have in your armory is a good thing.
Great. Well, listen, Adam, I just want to say on behalf of the West Wicklow Festival and the National Concert Hall, thank you so much for your time and your guidance today, and to Rebecca, Faith and Molly for your wonderful playing.
Yeah.
And I hope you all, you know, took a lot from it, and I hope it was beneficial. And yeah, I guess let's all stay in touch and look forward to hopefully seeing each other in live performance sooner rather than later. So stay safe, everyone, and thanks a lot, and thanks to everyone for watching, and I hope you all enjoyed.
Thank you so much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Fikra. Thanks, everyone.
See you later, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.